Sage Mode is one of the strongest and coolest imps in the entire Naruto series. It enhances the strength of the user, the reaction time, the speed, to degrees that are almost beyond comprehension for regular ninjas. It also increments your chakra reserves and allows you to use much more powerful jutsus, like Naruto was able to use the Rasen Shuriken in the fight against pain without the restrictions of having to hold it and also being able to use 2 charges. And then we have Hashirama being able to use the 1000 Buddha arm statue when he enters Sage Mode. Sage Mode simply has too many advantages for anyone to ignore. This begs the question, why doesn't everyone use Sage Mode? Of course, when I say everyone, I don't mean literally every single shinobi in the Naruto world. I mean powerful ninjas like, say, Madara and Sasuke that could have used Sage Mode during their careers, but never did so. First, we have to analyze what kind of limitations one would face when learning Sage Mode, and there are several actually. First, the chakra control necessary to master Sage Mode and to gather the nature energy is very difficult to attain. Only powerful and talented shinobis after a lot of training can attain Sage Mode. We see that when Naruto was beginning to learn the technique, he saw several frog statues that were turned into stone, and Naruto then found out those statues were actual people that tried to learn Sage Mode but failed, and the nature energy took over their bodies. The same thing happens when Naruto is fighting pain and the Preta Path absorbs too much Sage Mode energy, turning himself into a block of stone. So needless to say, Sage Mode isn't the easiest thing in the world to control, much in the contrary. This is already going to cut off a lot of people from being able to use it. Another important limitation is that the user must have a contract with some type of monster/animal summoning, and these summonings have to be able to use Sage Mode and then teach the user. At least that's how Sage Mode operates as far as we've seen. Naruto had the toads, Jiraiya had the toads, and Kabuto had the snakes. We don't know about Hashirama though. Maybe Hashirama's Sage Mode was different and he didn't require an animal summoning to learn it. And if you think about it, his Sage Mode marks look very different from Naruto or Kabuto or even Jiraiya. So maybe Hashirama's a different type of Sage Mode, we just still never know. We've never seen Hashirama using the summoning jutsu or anything like it, except for the Hashimons, but the Hashimons are barriers. They're not living beings, so maybe his is not an animal Sage Mode, but as far as we know, you kinda have to go through a contract and learn Sage Mode from an animal type of summoning, which makes things more difficult. If you cannot find an animal that's able to teach you Sage Mode, you just simply can't learn. Maybe. I don't know what's stopping you from, say, feeling the nature energy around you and attempting to collect it into you. Sure, the toads for Naruto made things much easier with that oil that allowed Naruto's body to absorb the nature energy with much more ease, but still, in theory, you could absorb the nature energy without going through the training of an animal, but let's just say, oh, okay, the training with the animal is required. And yes, this is gonna cut off a lot of people from this possibility of learning Sage Mode because most ninjas don't really have summoning contracts. And yeah, even if you are able to get training from one of those animals, there's a big chance you're just gonna turn into stone anyway if you don't have good chakra control. These are the most obvious reasons as to why the average Joe ninja in the Naruto verse will never learn Sage Mode. But what about the top tier guys? We saw Madara was able to control Sage Mode very easily. He even said, oh, this is Sage Mode? That's disappointing. It's too easy to control. And that was just after Madara absorbed Sage Mode from Hashirama. He's like, not fazed at all by it. So why couldn't Madara learn Sage Mode, for example? Maybe you could say he didn't have an animal summoning, because obviously the 9 tails wouldn't count. You need a type of animal like toads, or snakes, or slugs, for instance. And yet, Madara, who could master Sage Mode by just simply absorbing Hashirama's chakra once with it, he was fine and he never learned Sage Mode. Sasuke could have also mastered Sage Mode. He has very good chakra control. I mean, if Naruto is able to learn how to control nature energy, Sasuke would also be able to do so because he is more talented than Naruto. And you don't have the excuse that Sasuke didn't have an animal summoning because he had the snakes from Orochimaru. He had a contract and he also had the falcon. Maybe you can't learn from 2 different species, but still, Sasuke had summonings to learn Sage Mode from, and he never chooses to. Other characters people wanted to learn Sage Mode were Sakura and Tsunade from the Slugs, which seems fair. I mean, the slugs are one of these summonings from the legendary Sannin, and we see Jiraiya and Naruto learning Sage Mode from their summons. We also saw Kabuto learning Sage Mode from the snakes, and we don't see the slugs teaching Sakura or Tsunade anything. So Sasuke and Sakura got a little short-handed here because they could, in theory, have learned Sage Mode. I mean, we even see the snakes teaching Kabuto, but not Sasuke. Then again, Kabuto learned Sage Mode from the top dog of the snakes in Ryuchi Cave. It's not as though every single beast is going to teach you how to use Sage Mode. We see that when Naruto was learning it, he learned specifically from Fukasaku, arguably the most powerful frog slash toad, I don't know the difference, in Mount Myoboku. Gamabunta, for instance, wouldn't really be able to teach Naruto that because that's not his speciality. Maybe there is the added difficulty of having to find the correct type of animal in between the entire kingdom of those animals so that that particular one could teach you Sage Mode. And you could say, well, but Katsuyu seems to be the only big slug, and yes, Katsuyu lives in the Shikotsu forest and the slug is absolutely massive. It's very safe to assume that Katsuyu is the queen of all slugs, and therefore she would probably be the one who would make the most sense to teach Sage Mode to Sakura and Tsunade, and yet this never happens. This is where we encounter a problem. You see, it's very common to see fans asking in fanfics or other stuff like this, wow, this character should have Sage Mode, he should have the Flying Thunder God, he should have 3 Keiki Genkais, and he should be able to fly. People like to stack powers upon powers on characters. It's just the nature of it. Of course, that's once you learn a bit more about writing, it doesn't make much sense to do that. And also, if every character has every single power in the universe, then those characters are not gonna feel very interesting. So you cannot distribute something as powerful as Sage Mode to every other character you see fit. Just because a character fits a couple of criteria, it doesn't mean it makes sense for you to actually include the amp. It would also mess up with the entire scaling system. I mean, I'm not a very strict power scale guy, but it is important for the story to have internal consistency between the strengths of different characters and what different jutsus can do. Even though sometimes things go completely wrong, it's good to have a baseline to work on at least. And if every single character had Sage Mode, then this Sage Mode could be used on top of other abilities, making characters even more busted and kinda writing the author into a corner. An in-universe explanation as to why characters like Sasuke or even Sakura wouldn't want to pursue Sage Mode is that their chakra reserves are not as large as someone like Naruto, for instance. When Naruto begins to train his Sage Mode, we learn that the Sage Mode energy you're able to attain and gather within your body is equivalent to the amount of chakra you have. If someone like Kakashi, for instance, were to learn Sage Mode from dogs, which would definitely look cool, but Kakashi has historically a very awful chakra reserve, so he wouldn't be able to gather that much nature energy. Someone like Itachi, for example, he's extremely powerful just like Kakashi, but he doesn't have a lot of chakra like Naruto or like Jiraiya, so his Sage Mode wouldn't be as powerful either. And by the way, Itachi and Sasuke, they don't have low chakra. A lot of people like to say that, but no. Just watch the Sasuke versus Itachi fight. They spam jutsus at each other, powerful jutsus at that. But if you compare them to like Naruto or Hashirama, then yes, of course, their chakra reserves are not gonna be nearly as large. For example, we see what happens when someone that doesn't have a massive chakra pool learns Sage Mode when we see Minato Sage Mode. A lot of people love to say that Sage Mode Minato is extremely powerful, but let's be very real here. Minato's Sage Mode is bad. Yes, it is perfect Sage Mode, it looks just like Naruto's Sage Mode, but we see Minato isn't very powerful with it. It doesn't amp him a lot. For starters, he himself admits his Sage Mode is pretty bad. And if a character literally admits something in a story, this character having no ulterior motives to lie or anything like that, especially when it comes to a statement relating to power, this is very much the author of the story telling the audience, listen guys, he is not good at Sage Mode. That's why he's never used it before. He's just using it now because I kind of pulled it off of my you-know-where, because that's the only way to hit Madara in the scene, but that's just because, you know, we need Sage Mode for the scene, but in the past, it wouldn't make sense for Minato to use Sage Mode because his Sage Mode is not strong. So when people claim that, oh, Minato should have used Sage Mode when he fought Obito and the series would have ended before it started, no, because Sage Mode does not grant Minato a massive amp. As a matter of fact, Minato's Sage Mode runs out after one regular Rasengan. So yeah, it wouldn't work for characters like Itachi, Kakashi, or even Sasuke, because yeah, Sasuke has a very large chakra pool, especially in the end of Shippuden, but in the beginning of Naruto Shippuden, he didn't have that type of chakra. This still doesn't really answer why Madara never took upon himself to learn Sage Mode, because yes, Madara had a vast chakra reserve and a sublime ability to control his chakra, so yeah, Madara doesn't really make much sense. You could probably say he was focused on learning other stuff from the Uchiha Stone Tablet, mastering his Sharingan, his MS, his EMS, and then trying to awaken the Rinnegan and other stuff, and that's why he's never come around to learn Sage Mode, or maybe he was just never able to find someone that could teach him Sage Mode, and that's probably the case. We never know. Watch this other video right here for more entertaining Naruto content. Like this video if you enjoyed it, please. It helps me out a lot. And subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching.